We're now going to look at the domain and range of a line segment. Stating the domain and range of a set of points is relatively simple. However, more often than not, a relation will contain too many points to list discretely. So there are two possibilities that when we have a continuous graph to write the domain and range. One of them is set notation. Next one will be interval notation. And which one is more valuable? They both have a purpose. So it takes a while to sort of discover the purpose, but which one must you know? Both of them. So let's look at this first one, domain and range in set notation. So what we need to do is we need to identify the minimum and maximum values in the set. We're going to list the orders, minimum, maximum, and put the variable in between, and then we're going to use inequalities to compare them. So allow me to give you an example for the domain. What are the possible x values? Well, the lowest x value we can have is -2. The highest value we can have is 4. So really, we would like to convey this idea that the domain goes from -2 to 4 and every point in between. That is what we mean by there's so many infinite number of points in here for x that really we're just trying to say, well, x can be anything in between that. And this is quite a formal way of writing. So what we're going to say is the domain. The domain is x exists such that, that's an x with a really long straight line. And now we put our lowest value and our highest value with the variable in between. And after this, we put x is element of the reals. It's a lot to take in, I know. I'm not done yet. So really what we're saying here is the domain has to deal with the variable x, and this is our rule to be included in the domain, and this is the type of number. And we're dealing with real numbers because really it deals with rational and irrational numbers all the way in between here. So now let's work on a rule. What I'm trying to say is x is between -2 and 4. So the inequalities is x has to be greater than. Is it equal to? Yes, it is equal to. So here that means x is greater than or equal to -2, but x is less than or equal to 4. And those are the inequality signs that we would have to use for this. So again, very quickly, where is x? Well, x is between -2 and 4. And you attach those inequality signs to make sense of this. All right. Range. My range is a little bit different, and I sort of have to look at it from a different perspective. Range, well, here, what are the y values? My y values are these values here. So my range I would define as, there's my set brackets. Do you notice I'm using the same brackets? What variable I'm talking about? Y. The range is y, such that y, now those two numbers that I would put in between, the lowest value for y is 2, the highest one is 4. And y is element of the reals. And I simply input the inequality signs that make this good. This really says y is greater than or equal to 2, y is less than or equal to 4. And that's domain and range in set notation. So we have to indicate the lowest and the highest value. And right now you're probably looking at your screen and wondering why it's so formal. There are reasons why it's formal. If you want, I can give you an example in class. So right now, we're going to identify the domain and range in interval notation. So the above was set notation. How can you tell set notation? Well, because of the use of these kooky brackets called set brackets. Interval notation is a little bit different. An interval notation, you can write sets, or they're used to describe any continuous relation that goes from point A to point B and all points in between. Or in other words, that can describe a continuous interval. So again, what we have to do is we have to identify my lowest and highest values. So my thinking is, for domain, I go from -2 to 4 and all points in between. So for domain, what is my lowest value? 2. What is my highest value? 4. Sorry, it should be -2. My highest value is 4. I use square brackets around the -2 because the x value can have a value of -2. Square brackets around the 4 because my x value can have a value of 4. And this is really intuitive. So all I say is the domain is from -2 to 4. Now order does matter here. You can't put 4, comma, -2. Range. I ask myself 2 questions, exactly the same as domain, but now range, I have to switch my perspective, and this is really hard for some students. So range is my y values, right? My y values can go from 2 to 4. So the lowest y value it can have is 2. The highest one is 4. So that's what range would look like. And you actually don't need to underline it. It would just be lowest value is 2, highest value is 4, square brackets, and you're done. Quite a different thought than set notation.